On Friday the 13th, Jason is back, but this time, someone is waiting. Here's your look at the NECA Toys Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood, Jason Voorhees. There's a curse in these woods, Jason Voorhees' curse. They say he died as a boy, but keeps coming back. Few have seen him and lived. Some have tried to stop him. No one can. He's out there waiting. Figure includes interchangeable head, alternate mask, brush cutter, wood cutter, sickle, knife, tent stake, machete, and axe. Just before we get a closer look at Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th Part 7, believe you me, I never thought the day would come when I'd be able to actually say that. Let's first figure out how tall the figure stands. I'm going to grab my ruler and put it right to the very top of his head. And if I'm looking at this correctly, Jason stands at 8 inches exactly, or about 20.5 centimeters tall. As I'm sure many of you viewers are well aware of, I've had quite the struggle, and that's an understatement, to get this figure in hand. Being one of the downsides of being a Canadian collector is that comic book stores in my area are often sometimes several months behind the ones that are in the States. So I called around to several stores in my area. I even called stores outside my area to see if they had the Jason Voorhees stocked yet, and they don't even know when they're supposed to get him. I checked to pre-order this guy on 3 different websites, and all the websites first had this guy released in October. Then it was November, and the fact that we're now in several weeks into December, the pre-orders are still not being fulfilled. I even went to the extreme of having this guy in my shopping cart last month on eBay, but after the price that the sellers were charging him for, after the shipping, the brokerage, and the exchange, Jason Voorhees, without any word of a lie, was actually going to cost me around $120. I did, as a last resort, post on my Facebook asking if any of you viewers actually had this guy in your local stores, or if you had an extra one, I was more than happy to reimburse you. And viewer Andrew reached out to me over on Facebook and said, in fact, he did have an extra Jason Voorhees, and he was happy to send one my way. Thank you very much, Andrew. Again, anybody that's been following this channel as long as they have, know it's been a long time coming. I've been wanting to get this Jason for a while, and unfortunately just couldn't get it. Andrew really came through. So again, a big thank you to viewer Andrew. For some size comparisons, comparing him with at least a couple of other Jasons, let's bring in the Part 3 Jason Voorhees, which I didn't realize how much smaller the other Jasons are until you compare him next to Part 7. I mean, like here he is, for example, next to Part 6 Jason. We're all to really assume that they are supposed to be of the same character. I mean, Kane Hodder is a bigger, stockier stuntman, but the fact that when you compare him with the other Jason Voorhees that we've gotten before from NECA Toys, it's not then until you realize how much bigger Part 7 is. On to now the figure's accessories. And being that he is an ultimate Jason, NECA really went above and beyond to package a lot of accessories with the figure. Some more likely to be displayed with the figure, and then other accessories like some of the ones that we're going to start things off with. Not ones I'm really going to display with Jason, but again, appreciative of the fact that they would have included it with the figure. Starting pretty low on that list of things to be displayed with Jason, he comes included with a knife. I don't really consider Jason to be the type that uses knives a lot. This is more Myers territory. In fact, I might even just find myself using this knife with a Michael Myers I already have on display. The knife has been painted well in the gunmetal gray for the blade, and even washed in there some additional brown paint, the 2 halves of the wood that are keeping the blade together. They've even gone in there and painted in the riveted points. Again, it's not likely something I'm going to be displaying with Jason. It's pretty low on the list of his accessories, but at least the figure comes included with it. Slightly above higher than that, the figure comes included with the tent spike. Now the tent spike, unlike the knife, looks like it's been used, and it has been quite soaked in blood red. I don't want to put it so far on the list, but just again, based on the other things he comes included with, even though this is something I would consider him wielding in the movie. I mean, he really did wield the knife as well, and the tent spike does have a memorable moment. I don't know if I would again display him with it, because there's so many other cool things that come included with the figure. The figure comes with his tried and true machete, though unlike the tent spike, it actually has not been used unless he's gone in there and cleaned the blade after his kill. Again, it's very nicely polished in a metallic silver paint. And the handle in this case has been molded and painted in black. Now they haven't actually put the handle portion here. It looks like two halves, of course, are sandwiched together. They didn't paint the blade in this part area here, but at least it's a nice serviceable machete. Even if I don't display it with this Jason, I can easily display it with another Jason instead. The figure comes also included with a sickle. I put this pretty high on the list. Maybe not as high as the next things we're about to have a look at, but I think the sickle is a nice accessory to come include with the figure. It's not made of the softest of plastics, but at least that type of plastic that you're not as worried about breaking. It's painted again nicely in that gunmetal silver. The handle, different of a color brown than the one that we looked at earlier. Again, is sandwiching the two halves of the blade together. Even again, painting in the riveted points. Slightly higher on my list of accessories to come include with the figure. Figure comes also included with an axe. The handle of the axe is more of a bleached wood, unlike the ones that we looked at earlier with the sickle. In this case, he has used it, but the way that the blood is kind of running further down on the head as well as the top of the head, the handle, it almost looks like he's made the kill and then he's rested the axe against the side of a barnyard. And the blood sort of just trickled down. It's a nice looking axe, as you can see. And on the both sides. I like that on one side you can see it really has run itself down the side of the handle. Very high on the list of things I'm going to display with the figure, then until, of course, we look at the next things he comes included with. The figure has a woodcutter. I've used not necessarily this one, and I haven't used it for killing people, but I have used a similar woodcutter for trimming the side branches of a tree. These are super sharp, by the way, something you will want to be careful of and keep away from kids. The middle section of the blade has been more used a darker gunmetal gray, and on the outer edge, ooh, don't worry, it's not sharp. I shouldn't really ever joke about that. The outer edge is done here in a silver, lighter silver paint. And then you've got the red that keeps the blade attached to the handle. And similar to the axe, is using more of a bleached wood coloring. They've even gone in to paint in the grains, so it actually looks like wood. This is going to sit pretty high, maybe right under the next accessory that we're about to have a look at. Cutting up deer doctors, the figure comes included with a brush cutter. I have used weed whackers, but usually they're just a little strip of plastic that cuts down. I've never used anything so disastrous and sharp like this, so dangerous. I mean, he definitely does make use of it in the movie, although unfortunately, most of Part 7's kills are either off-screen or heavily edited. So we really don't get the benefit of him really seeing him using this brush cutter. It does spin, which is nice. I like that they actually did include that. Now, I have a cut. Actually, in fact, I have a couple of cuts right here. The more extreme one you can see right here. It looks like it's cut right into the plastic itself. Although on the bottom of the blade, I don't see it. The blade has been painted, and you can see there's a few little areas where it's slightly more darker and then it's slightly a little lighter. It looks like they have painted it by hand, which is fine. It gives it definitely look more like it's old and been used. They have added some additional wash of black to the top of it. Make it look a little greasy and grimy. And then they've also added an additional wash all down the length of the handle. Speaking of handles, there's one of the handles they can hold in his hand. There's the trigger right there to activate the brush cutter. And there's the motor right there. Even to the point there's the pull cord. Now the pull cord's been molded to the actual motor. So you can't actually there's the pull cord around the bottom there. This, I guess, is just an additional wire that runs it to the side motor. But yeah, there's the pull cord right on the back there. You can't pull it. It's not intended for that. But at least they've actually gone in there and painted it really nicely. This is probably, and I can't speak for everybody, but I know certainly for myself, this is going to be the accessory I'm going to want to display with Jason. Even though, again, it's a satisfying kill, but it's not really a kill that we get to really appreciate in the movie because it's so cut away and edited. Now, to display this into his hands, he does also come with a couple of swappable hands, because right now he only comes with a pair of relaxed hands. The hands that he comes also included with are gripping hands suited for any one of the accessories that we just finished having a look at. And boy, those hands are gruesome. You can see like the bones are sticking out from the skin. The coloring that they've added to this really adds a nice contrast of colors. It really allows those details on the hands to stand out. We don't really spend enough time really talking about the craftsmanship that they put into even things like hands. Decent looking hands though. To change out the hands on Jason, let's go ahead and pick the figure up. Like right now, as it stands, he only has relaxed hands. We easily just yank the hands from the sockets. Yanking is probably not the best word to be using. You really want to twist the hands as you're removing them from the sockets. Once that's removed, go ahead and pop the new hand in. And we can do the exact same thing on the other side as well. Just wiggle that off, remove it from the socket, and replace it with the necessary hand that we want to have to hold the brush cutter. Just bend the elbows. Then you can take the hands, and because they're soft enough plastic, you really don't even need to heat them. Just take the one hand and take the handle. Be careful of this, by the way. It's because, again, it's just a very thin plastic that they use for the handle. Oops, it also helps as well. We have it facing the right way. Turn it around so we've got the blade facing the doctor. Go ahead and then, once again, put the handle into his one hand. And then take the other hand, and you want to get it around the handle. The thing you will want to be careful of, though, is this little trigger, and I'm hoping you guys can see it right there. Because of the nature of how thin it is and the type of plastic that they've used, if you put any little bit of pressure against this, you're more likely to snap it. So be careful of it. Then from there, you can go ahead and take the hand, just again, pry the fingers just a little bit away. If you're having, by the way, any struggles doing this, just heat the hand in hot water. But I think the type of plastic that they've been using lately for their hands is easily something that you can work with without having to worry about heating it up. If anything, the hands are just going to be popping out from the handles. Just again, there we go. Pry the hands, and you can have Jason Voorhees wielding the brush cutter. By far, of all the accessories that we've looked at that come include with the Ultimate Jason, and he certainly does live up to Ultimate Jason, this is by far my favorite of all the accessories. Jason will also include 2 interchangeable head sculpts. We're going to start things off first, the one that has the closed mouth and the less damage of the 2 hockey masks. The alternate head sculpt had the open mouth and a very visibly cracked up the middle hockey mask that can attach to the back of the figure's portrait. I'll show you guys how to change that out in a second. In the meantime, though, I want to spin this around so you can see the work that NECA put into this figure from all the sides. A lot of good stuff going on here. It was worth the wait, and I don't want to just say, like, from my standpoint of how long I had to wait to actually get this figure in my collection, but fans as a whole had to wait a while for this figure to get released. I think it was released or announced several years ago, but just due to the legal issues of trying to find out who actually owned the franchise, it caused this figure to get delayed again and again. But like I said, it was certainly worth the wait. One of the neat designs I like about the Part 7 Jason is they tried their best to kind of keep all the retained injuries that he suffered in the previous films sort of all just mashed together into this one design. So you sort of can pick out some of the things that he may have had, like the gashes on the side of his head, for example, the open mouth and broken hockey mask, resulting in that boat motor propeller sort of chewing up the bottom of it at the end of Part 6. Not to mention as well, he does have a real chain that wraps around his neck, the one that Tommy wraps around his neck at the end of Jason Lives. Unfortunately, I did suffer one other disastrous effect here on the side of the hockey mask. You may have even spotted it at the beginning of this review. Unfortunately, though, my strap on the side of the hockey mask was attached further up here. You can probably already see what was left of it. I ended up having to pry that off and fit it in the hole it was supposed to go in, and I'm going to have to probably glue that in place. I may have got myself a little bit of a factory error. Like I said, the strap was a little bit further up. It results, unfortunately, in my hockey mask sitting a little loose because, again, it doesn't have all the 3 straps attached properly. Yeah, you can see it right there where it was supposed to attach in place. But a little bit of glue will certainly fix things up. The nice thing I like about this hockey mask is while taking it out of the plastic, the first thing I sort of thought was, did they do the same thing that they did with the Part 6 Jason, and they filled in the eyes? In actual fact, they didn't. What they did do, though, was they darkened the areas of the eyes for the face that's underneath. And the eyes are so far back, it actually gives you still the illusion that he has pitch black eyes, when in actual fact, he has holes going through those hockey mask openings. Again, I'm going to have to go in there and just fix this up. The hockey mask is good. I really have no complaints, other than maybe just one. I feel like the hockey mask is a little too long on the figure's head. Now, I can understand why NECA had to make the mask the length that it did, because it has to be able to clear the chin, because that's his face underneath there. But I feel like the hockey mask is a little more squared off in the movie. It's a little long, but it's still a great-looking hockey mask. I like the discoloration, for example, that they've put all around the outer area of the hockey mask, as well as the singular triangular chevron, which I think in the movie is a little bit more of a reddish-brown than the cranberry that they went with here. But again, really nice-looking hockey mask. It is removable, as you can probably already see by the fact it's flopping around a little bit on me. I'm going to have to go in there and fix it. But anyways, we're going to take the hockey mask off. I want to show you guys what the head sculpt looks like underneath. Now, he does get unmasked in the movie. He tends to get unmasked in pretty much all the Friday the 13th movies, I guess, except for Jason X. He doesn't get unmasked in that. But it's a gruesome looking, one of my personal favorites of an unmasked Jason. I like how he's got the one socket of the eye with no eye. It's completely decayed away. And then the other eye right here, it almost looks like it's looking off just to the far side. It looks really gruesome. And again, you've got all the gashes on the side of his head, both from machete as well as the axe there as well. Nicely done. I think it also works too that they've added more of a clear finish to it, so it makes the head look really wet. Now the alternate head sculpt, let's just pick this up right now so you can see the difference between the two, is definitely one more of him opening his mouth. More surprised, I guess, than anything else that somebody actually possesses powers to defeat him. The head sculpts, both of them are good. I guess it's just a matter of preference. If you wanted to display him with the hockey mask, you're probably more leaning to this direction. But if you wanted to have him either unmasked or with the cracked hockey mask, there's also this route as well. To change the head sculpts, all you have to do is hold on to the torso and just wiggle Jason off of the ball joint. Be careful, though, of this chain because it's a separate piece. The moment you take the head off, that chain can fall off and somewhere onto the floor, so just be careful of that. Kind of just hold that in place as well. Taking the head off was fairly easy after a couple of tries. Because the ball joint that they used is more of a bigger ball joint, it's a little harder the first time I did it, but it became easier every time after that. I'm surprised they actually didn't use a post, instead using the ball joint. I think a post would have been so much easier. Anyways, to change out the head sculpt, we'll just pop the new one back in place. Just be, again, careful of that chain. And just put a little bit of pressure in place. And there you've got Jason with his open mouth. One last time, just in case you forgot what it looked like. There's the alternate head sculpt right there. This would not work well with the with the original hockey mask. Because, again, you put it in place. You know, the chin does sit a little further down. But I guess if you want to have Jason with the open mouth, I guess it could still technically work. But more likely to be displayed with this hockey mask. No, I didn't actually break the hockey mask. It actually comes like this. It's split up the middle as Tina uses her force to crack the mask. It's neat because you can actually put it around Jason's face as if he actually did have the hockey mask fully intact. You sort of have to kind of put the pieces together. It almost fits, almost fits. But the whole idea really is that you take the back here. See, there's a little peg right there. You may not have seen it right away, but there's a hole right there. And you just take the strap of the hockey mask and you just fit it into that hole. Just like that. And then you can have Jason Voorhees with the cracked mask opened up. And I guess to your preference, you can either have the hockey mask further away from itself, or you can kind of bring them a little bit closer together like she just cracked it. The end result, though, is it's nice. A really, really neat touch on their part. Instead of actually giving us 3 head sculpts where the third one would have had to incorporate all of this, by just a simple fix of using the peg that fits into the back of the hole like this, you can actually just attach the hockey mask and have it displayed like this, or you can leave it off completely if you wanted to instead. On to his body now, well, what's left of it at least. Like in the movie, it looks like it's decaying and barely keeping it together. In fact, when he comes out in the movie from his watery depths, you can see his spinal cord, and that's been replicated so nicely here on the figure as well. There's all these little openings done to his shirt where you can sort of play peekaboo and see the sculpting that they put underneath all of it. And because it's softer plastic, you can actually even just peel away the shirt to kind of see all the additional details underneath it. The ribcage, for example, has the opened bones sticking out. The skin looks like it's decaying and falling off his body. The nice thing about the body is as well, if I just peel this back like curtains, the coloring that they've used isn't consistent either, like the way that the body would naturally decay. So like his ribs, for example, are more of a lighter beige with a little bit of pink added in there. Whereas his lower mid-torso is kind of the coloring of raw meats. Darker, more bloodier red with some additional patches of fatty yellow. You can see there's punctures, gashes, and just wounds inflicted to his body. And all nicely captured here on the figure. Because again, like they're using softer plastic here on the shirt, it means that when we look at the figure's articulation, which we'll talk more about in a second, nothing is limited or hindered here. Again, we'll talk more about that in a second. Some nice rips and opened areas here on his shirt. The arms here are more of a solid plastic, whereas like the shirt and the pants that we're about to have a look at is again softer plastic that they put over top of sort of key areas on his body. Again, we got the decayed areas of his hands and his arms. So much additional coloring that they've incorporated into this figure. You can imagine that they really had a good time sculpting and painting this guy, because up to this point, Jason really was sort of known for just wearing a long sleeve shirt and regular pants. With Part 7 Jason, they could really go all out with not only the sculpting, but again, the paint work as well. As for Jason's pants, again, torn and tattered like his shirt, some of the areas are softer plastic, so again, you can kind of peel those back to see like the wounds underneath there. But there's all these little punctured areas, gashes, and in many cases, some of the extreme moments in the movie, he does also have visible kneecaps. That's one of my favorite things about the movie, is that he had kneecaps and he also had the exposed spinal cord on the back there. But everything is captured nicely here on the figure. Yeah, like the fact that they were able to overlay, this is not something you see too often here with figures. The fact that they overlaid a layer of softer plastic over top of the framework underneath and still be able to retain articulation is quite the feat on NECA's part. And you can see like the torn rags of what's left of his pants draping over top of his boots. Really, really nice work here. Okay, so let's talk about the figure's articulation. The head rotates all the way around. The thing you have to be careful of, probably would help me as well, to pop it all the way onto the ball joint. But the thing about it, though, is while you are rotating the head, just be careful that the chain doesn't get wound up, because that's going to snap as well. It's just, again, a loose piece that they put over top of the neck. And again, when you are changing out the heads, make sure that you don't lose the chain in the process. The head goes up, the head goes down, back and forth, and rotates all the way around. And again, I don't have it completely onto the ball joint. As for the arms come out. Now, there is limitations I've noticed here on the arms of the figure. I can only get to about 45 degrees. And a lot of it could probably be for the fact that the shoulders are so close to his torso. I mean, there's very little wiggle space to work with there. If you can find a gap, it's very little. And like I said, I can only get about 45 degrees. It's a little disappointing, but again, for the fact that you get a figure this sculpted and he's still articulated in all the other places, I don't mind sacrificing a little bit in the shoulders. The arms rotate all the way around. And he does have a swivel in the forearm. Double hinges on the elbows, by the way, too, in case you guys were curious. Hands rotate all the way around as well, hinging back and forth. And again, because they are using the softer plastic here on the shirt, nothing gets limited when it comes to the articulation. He not only has an upper torso ball joint, but he also has a lower torso ball joint down below as well. Legs split out. You can go forward and back on the legs. It also swivels basically where that's attached to that ball joint. Single hinge on the knee, rotating back and forth on the leg, the lower leg that is. And even though he is sort of cuffed by all the additional rags that drape down like this, you can still move his feet back and forth this way, twist them this way, and he also has an ankle pivot as well. It was worth the wait. And again, a big thank you, big thank you to viewer Andrew that reached out to me and said, hey, listen, man, I've got another Jason. Can I send him your way? And again, I will reimburse you, Andrew. Thank you very much for taking the time and picking this guy up for me. A long-awaited figure. I've talked about this figure. I mean, first of all, I've always kind of said the figure I really want NECA Toys to produce is a Part 7 Jason. And even when he was released, I kept saying to myself, I got to get this guy right away. Got to get this guy right away. Couldn't get this guy right away just due to, unfortunately, the nonsense of trying to pick this guy up online and the additional cost. Yeah, I could have got this guy earlier, but at $120, that's a bitter pill to swallow. But again, Andrew came through, sent this guy my way, and so happy now to finally have this guy in my possession. Dare I say, I almost even want to get a second one of these for how good the sculpting is for the head sculpts that they include with the figure, not to mention all the additional accessories. I might even want to pick up a second one of these. Then I can display Jason Voorhees with the hockey mask on. I can display another one with the hockey mask either cracked or just removed altogether. And of course, with all the other accessories he comes included with this figure as well, there's a lot of good possible options for displaying this figure. I know, tough guy to read behind the camera, but I'm really, really happy with what NECA's done to this release. If I could just plant a bug into NECA's ear for a second, you know, if you guys are looking to get more mileage out of your molds, because of course the cost of producing these molds from scratch gets a little expensive, release this guy down the road as a convention exclusive. You could call him Charred Jason. You probably could come up with something a little bit more clever than that. But release the way that Jason looks at the end of Friday the 13th Part 7, after he's emerged from the fiery basement. Keep the figure basically the way we're looking at right now. Darken the colors of his costume so it looks more like he's been charbroiled. And you could even keep the same head sculpt. Just put a couple of nails embedded in the top of his head. Give him scene-specific accessories, a couple of flame attachments, or even a fiery flaming ring that can go around the bottom of the figure's legs. Charred Jason. Again, you probably could come up with a little bit more clever of an idea than that. But I think there's definitely more mileage that they could get out of this existing figure. It's too good of a figure just to be released as a one and we're done. Charcoaled, charbroiled, burnt Jason, barbecued Jason, any way you'd like to call it. I think they could definitely get a lot more from this mold by releasing this guy down the road. And again, as a convention exclusive. This figure has a lot of good stuff going for him. You probably could tell that over the course of this review. 2 swappable head sculpts, 2 different types of hockey masks that you can have displayed along with the figure. Although the one that's cracked right now is only really designed for this particular head sculpt, you really can't use it for the other one. But you could technically use this head sculpt if you want to use the regular hockey mask. Unfortunately, my hockey mask, the strap was glued in the strangest of places instead of where it was supposed to be. It was a little further up. I've just removed it, just popped it off. I'm going to have to glue it back in place. No harm, no foul. That's not a deal breaker for how good this figure actually is. Again, tons of different accessories to choose from. My personal favorite, I can't speak for everybody, is the brush cutter. That's probably going to be the way I'm going to display the figure. If I happen to pick up a second one of these, though, then again, I could probably display him with what you're seeing here in final looks, maybe display him with the tent spike, or maybe I could display him with the woodcutter. Woodcutters, by the way, very dangerous. Even though nothing's spinning like the brush cutter, woodcutter can cut your arm off. I've only really done just the cutting of tree limbs, but I can tell you that blade's pretty sharp, though. A big thank you once again, big super thank you to viewer Andrew, who reached out to me over on Facebook after my plea of help. Could somebody find this figure for me? Andrew answered the call, found an extra figure, and sent it my way. Thank you again very much, Andrew. If you guys have managed to pick up this figure, because this guy was released a while ago, I know I'm a little late on the game of doing the review for him, but if you have picked up the figure, let me know down below in the comments section what you guys think of it and how you display the figure, because there's so many different accessories to choose from. Which accessory do you display with Jason? Also, if you're new to this channel, you're enjoying the content that you're seeing, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, turn the bell notification on, and make sure, yes, you're coming back, because we are going to be looking at more NECA reviews coming your way. And as always, thanks for watching. Charcoal Jason, NECA Make It Happen. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time.